Extreme evil is not radical, but banal, wrote Hannah Arendt, summarizing in a few words one of the most profound and disturbing reflections of the 20th century. With this sentence, a glimmer of light opens on a complex theme: how ordinary people can become accomplices to unspeakable atrocities simply by following orders or adapting to a dehumanizing system. In this video, we explore the life and thought of Hannah Arendt, a philosopher who dedicated her life to understanding the mechanisms of power, morality, and individual responsibility. From her encounter with philosopher Martin Heidegger, to her forced exile during Nazism, to her direct observation of Adolf Eichmann's trial, each experience helped shape her theory of the banality of evil. Hannah was born on October 14, 1906, in Linden, a suburb of Hanover, Germany, to a wealthy Jewish family. Her parents came from families with a solid social position. In 1909, they moved to Königsberg in what was then East Prussia because of her father's poor health, who suffered from a chronic illness that caused his death in 1913, when Hannah was only 7 years old. Raised in a secular and politically progressive environment, she was deeply influenced by her mother, who had strong social democratic ideals. From a young age, she showed a strong passion for literature and philosophy, distinguishing herself for her lively intelligence and precocious intellectual maturity. In 1924, at the age of 18, she decided to undertake graduate studies at the University of Marburg, a place renowned for its academic rigor, but also for its unwelcoming environment towards women. At the time, Germany was still trying to overcome the ravages of World War I, a period of political and economic instability that left the country teetering between its imperial past and an uncertain future. In this context, Arendt focused on the study of the mechanisms of power and authoritarianism, an ambition that would define the course of her life. As always, I remember that your support is a very precious gesture and decisive for the future of the channel. Thank you very much. During his academic journey, he met Martin Heidegger, a charismatic and complex philosopher who had a significant influence on his intellectual development. With him, he began to ask fundamental questions about human behavior, trying to understand how rational individuals could be responsible for acts of extreme cruelty. But he soon realized that the answers to these questions were not to be found in mere theory. Traditional philosophy, often confined to academic spheres far from reality, did not offer adequate tools to address real human suffering. These thoughts did not remain confined to the academic sphere, but acquired a dramatic concreteness with the evolution of historical events. The rise of Nazism in Germany made Arendt's questions not only an intellectual exercise, but an urgent matter of life and survival. In 1933, with the rise to power of Adolf Hitler, Arendt was arrested for gathering information on anti-Semitic propaganda. Her detention lasted only 8 days, during which her mother was also held. Later, a sympathetic officer ordered the release of both of them pending a possible trial. Aware of the imminent danger, she left Germany and began a painful journey of exile that took her first to Paris and then, in 1941, to the United States, where she remained for the rest of her life. During these years, she experienced firsthand the loss of identity and citizenship, reflecting deeply on the fragility of human rights and the precariousness of the human condition in the absence of solid political institutions. In 1948, Hannah also lost her mother, who died of natural causes in New York, an event that marked a further moment of grief in her life journey. During this period of exile and reflection, one of his most significant works took shape, The Origins of Totalitarianism, which marked a turning point in his thinking. In this text, he analyzed in detail how totalitarian regimes, such as Nazism and Stalinism, not only oppressed their opponents, but also destroyed people's ability to think and act as individuals. What struck her most was not the overt brutality, but the ability to normalize evil, making it an integral part of everyday life. This concept found its greatest expression during the trial of Adolf Eichmann in 1961. Eichmann, the bureaucrat responsible for the logistics of the Holocaust, defended himself by claiming that he had simply followed orders, without ever reflecting on the consequences of his actions. Arendt, who attended the trial as a special correspondent for The New Yorker, was deeply struck by the defendant's mediocrity. Eichmann did not appear as a fanatic or a monster, but as an ordinary person, lacking critical thinking and incapable of reflecting on the consequences of his actions. From this observation was born the famous concept of the banality of evil, with which Arendt described how terrible acts can be committed by ordinary individuals who abandon their moral responsibility. Arendt highlighted how totalitarian systems were designed to fragment individual responsibility, diluting it in a chain of commands and bureaucratic procedures. In a context where obedience was exalted and reflection punished, evil became a daily routine. Her reflections were not limited to criticizing dictatorial regimes, but went on to examine the dynamics of modern societies, where bureaucracy and propaganda can foster conformism and indifference. Another central theme in her thought was the role of politics as a space for dialogue and the construction of a common world. Arendt considered politics not as a simple exercise of power, but as a meeting place where individuals can confront each other, deliberate, and act together. The fragmentation of modern societies, in her opinion, represents a profound crisis which leads to the alienation of individuals from their own humanity. Historical memory plays a fundamental role in countering these dynamics. Arendt insisted on the importance of remembering past atrocities to prevent their repetition. Forgetting is not a neutral act, but a form of complicity that paves the way for new injustices. In her writings, she highlighted how even in the darkest moments, culture, art, and reflection can offer a refuge and a means of resistance. His teaching is extremely significant. Thinking critically is not a privilege reserved for intellectuals, but a responsibility for everyone. Reflecting on one's actions and their consequences is an act of resistance against conformism and dehumanization. As he wrote in The Life of the Spirit, thinking without restrictions is the only antidote to the conformism of the masses. Once freedom is lost, it is difficult to recover. This warning still resonates today in a world where disinformation, propaganda, and conformism threaten the ability to act with awareness. Yet, even in the most difficult moments, there is the possibility of resistance through small acts of humanity. Every choice, however insignificant it may seem, has the power to make a difference. Hannah Arendt died on December 4, 1975 in New York due to a heart attack. With her passing, the world lost one of the most lucid and courageous minds of the 20th century. But her philosophical legacy lives on and invites us to reflect on a fundamental question. What role are you willing to take on in building a more just world?